Got quite a situation this evening, down to the wire here with Hurricane Irma starting to make its final approach into the Florida area, but not before this little incursion onto the Cuban coast, which actually the European model had started picking up on about a day or so ago. So let me switch charts here and we'll see what's going on outside. Actually, at the moment, I was looking at the outside camera, and I don't know if you can see that, but there's Jupiter up at the top of the image. Let's see if I can draw on it. Yeah, there it is right there. So anyway, we're losing daylight very rapidly now with fall starting to get close here. Okay, so heading straight into the data there, you can see the westward movement of Hurricane Irma. And that's going to bring it onto the Cuban coast. And now we're going to have to start contending with the effects of friction on the Cuban landmass here. So that's going to degrade our storm, at least temporarily. However, as it emerges out around Florida, out in this area here, we've got sea surface temperatures around 85 to 86 degrees there. So we're expecting that with very good shear profiles. We should see some rapid development. I'm not too sure if we're going to be back up to Cat 5 on this storm, but very likely, at the very least, Category 4 here. Okay, so let's see what NHC has. At 8 p.m., which was about an hour ago, we had a Category 4 storm. Sustained winds 155, which is down from about a day or two ago. Central pressure 924. I think that's come up just a tiny bit. And we can take a look at Irma there on the polar orbiter imagery. This was earlier today, and there's the eye. Looks a little bit clouded in there. You can see a little bit of stratocumulus in there, and around that, there's the eye wall. So not much to say about that, except it's just drifting westward, and then we'll pick up on that with the model tracks, and that'll give us an idea which what we're looking at for landfall. In fact, I guess we can probably go ahead and go right into that. Now the deterministic models, the high resolution output looks like this evening. This is the 12Z models with verification of the hurricane, as you see right here. This was a fix that I made based on satellite imagery, but NHC had it down here, And I believe the effect there may be partly due to parallax error. So I think somewhere in between, possibly the most likely region there. But using that, we can see how the models are verifying. The GFS last night and this morning had continued with this easterly track, keeping it to the north and to the east. However, you can see a big change. Instead of bringing it up into the Miami area like we were expecting, there has been a westward shift on that track. And that's kind of a significant shift on the order of about 75 to 100 miles there. The European model has led that shift. It's also brought the track more onto the Cuban coast, and it's been very aggressive with the southward incursion. In fact, looking at all the ensemble members, let me find the right chart here. Yeah, these are all of the European ensembles, and you can see that not one of them had went north of the current position. And it has verified to a certain extent yesterday, supporting this track into southwestern Florida. So it appears that that is what we're looking at. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to correct that European ensemble down and weed out some of the southward lying members that were off. Also, this storm has been moving a little bit faster than expected, so we're going to weed out some of the slower members. And by doing that, this is what we get here. This is the best 7 members out of the European ensembles. And so we get kind of a clustering in the area south of Fort Myers. And I'm trying to remember how far east or west Key West is, but basically this does bring it into southwestern Florida, but not before skirting the coast here. And those frictional effects will help the storm to fill a little bit. Now, what about the GFS? Let's take a look at that. These are the 20 members of the GFS. Looks to be a little bit more on track. GFS going a little bit further north. However, there are significant errors here. So we've got like one position here at 0Z, way up to the north, about 70 to 90 miles off. And we've got some paths that are way too far south. And those carry the storm very far to the west. So this north-south positioning is critical. And if we remove the erroneous models, we get something like this. This is the 10 best models. And still, even with this, we're getting a pretty broad spectrum of possibilities here up in Florida. So it still appears that there could be a chance that we may get a storm out in the Key Largo area. That's still not out of the realm of possibility. However, with this very gradual westward shift in this track, I'm becoming a little bit more concerned about the Fort Myers area. We could see a track more like that. Now, the best grouping of the GFS puts it right in this area. That's where we were talking about for the European model. And so just based strictly off the deterministic models and the we're looking at basically this for a track right here, with the possibility of that continuing to shift a little further westward, which would be bad because that would bring the main storm surge into the Fort Myers area. And let's talk about terms of storm surge. Wow, look at that. We've got 3 hurricanes out there. For Irma, storm surge inundation products are looking like this here. We'll bring up these charts, and you can see the Everglades, this entire area in here, expecting a very significant storm surge, even with a north-northwest movement. This area is expected to be inundated, but here you can see the problems that we could be looking at in the Cape Coral and Fort Myers area. It's a very heavily populated area, and if we do continue getting this westward progression of the track, we could see some very catastrophic damage in here. Let me make a couple of adjustments here and bring out the neighborhoods and some of the development in this area and zoom that in so you can kind of get an idea of what we're in for. For some reason that doesn't zoom in any further, but yeah, a lot of neighborhoods in this area here, and these yellow and red shadings indicating anywhere from 3 to 9 feet of inundation. Also Cape Coral, a lot of that under 1 to 3 feet of water, so this would be extensive damage. So we're going to just have to continue monitoring this overnight, and I was kind of hoping the track would start getting nailed down about right now, but there is still uncertainty, especially with the effects of friction there. That can add a little bit of chaos to the forecast there. So let me take a look at the chat, see what we got going on here. In fact, before I do that, let me give you all something to look at. See if we have the infrared up. Yep, there's our hurricane there, about to hit the Cuban coast. We've got Sue M there and saying hello, and Alex Front says it'll be interesting to see how quickly it makes the turn to the north, entering a critical stage in Irma's lifespan. Ron Chalfant, watching it from Southern California, the next 48 hours will be trying for the Florida and coastal areas inland. Wonder if Irma will make a Category 5 before landfall. I believe earlier NHC was forecasting a Cat 5 landfall. I'm not too sure about that. I think there's a possibility we would be looking at Cat 4, but as I've said, there are very warm waters and very excellent conditions for redevelopment in this area right here in the Straits. So we're just going to watch it during the day tomorrow, and landfall is going to be tomorrow night into Sunday morning. We have Jay Today Cynical here, and Linda T. Jeff Lockwood, Michael Burrell, ready for Irma there in Georgia. Burl H. Alexi Walsh there in Texas. Ron says, as Tim pointed out last night, the waters offshore very warm in Irma's path. Linda T. is in Virginia. Eddie W. is here. Funwood Tech. Michael Burrell says Peachtree, Georgia thinks it'll be a Cat 5 when it hits Florida. And Michael says that is a massive hurricane, just massive. We have Mike R. here, Carl Berghoff. Ryan Toomey's anxious but loving that westward track. Yeah, Miami has really dodged a bullet with this westward track, but depending on how far west or east it goes, see at this time, it looks like the main impacts are going to be in the Everglades. Let me bring up the path here. What we're looking at here, just a reminder, the red, this is the GFS track, the narrow red track here. This is the control run of the ensemble. members, and in other words, this is the lower resolution version of the GFS, which is not adjusted for a different initial state or different physics. So any difference between the thin red track and the thick one would be due to the increase in resolution with the higher resolution GFS. So it looks fairly close, although the higher resolution GFS is pulling it a little bit further east, and that has been something we've been seeing over the past several days. The European model is red, or I'm sorry, blue. That's this line here. This is the main 1534 or whatever it is, 1534 wave ECMWF. That's going right up into the swamplands in this area. The thinner blue line, that's going to be the control run for the European ensemble. That's what that is right there. And then these outlier lines, this outer line, this is the NavGem, going way out west there. And indeed, it makes you wonder because, you know, there has been that westward drift on that track successively. Then this purple track, that was the UK Met model. And the UK Met model had that going very far inland into Cuba. So that would be the only problem with that particular model. I'm not sure we're seeing that kind of movement inland. And then the other one, this is the HWRF, kind of riding the center between the European and GFS. Pretty much right into this bay here. And this is all mostly uninhabited. This is all like mangroves, marshland, and there's very little human habitation in here. The current tracks, if they do stay the same as you see right here, that is going to bring the primary surge into that swampland, and of course the ecological effects on there would be devastating, but that is kind of the best outcome as far as the cities, because Cape Coral, Fort Myers, that would be on the other side, the left side of the storm. In other words, the storm rotation spinning like this. Let me see if I can draw that better. Okay. So here you would have the forward motion of 10 to 15 knots subtracted out of that forward speed, and you would also have less of a storm surge as water would be pulled away from the coast. So it's really going to come down to these next 12 to 18 hours, whether we see that westward creep, and if it does, then we will be looking at a lot of problems there in the Fort Myers, Cape Coral area. But there's just really no way to know. We're just playing that game of waiting for the next run and stressing and seeing what happens. Okay, let's see. Ryan Toomey says, absolute killer storm. Thank you, ridge of high pressure. Ryan Toomey's there on the East Coast. For those of you not familiar, this is the Miami area. This is Homestead here. And the Fort Lauderdale area is up a little bit further north. Marco Island, Naples, Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Venice, Sarasota on target. From Ryan there. Sue M says she follows Big Cat Rescue in Tampa, hoping their 70 lions and tigers make it through. Mike R says some of the video out of the islands is just amazing and scary. Ryan says if Irma stays a powerful Category 4 storm right now on the threshold of Cat 5, he thinks it'll hit Cat 5 once it crosses back over the Florida Straits through the Gulf Stream waters. So yeah, there is that possibility here during the day tomorrow as it makes that crossing. Kevin McKinney, afraid for the people on the West Coast who might have been a bit complacent because of the earlier tracks. Yeah, we had Miami under the gun earlier, and I could definitely see that possibility of the people out there in Fort Myers waiting it out and hoping for the best. And now, yeah, let's check out the traffic and see what's going on. This will give us kind of a look at the evacuation situation out there in Florida. So we'll head out in that direction and bring up the traffic. And the interstates look pretty good on the East Coast there, Florida. Looking really good there. But there are problems coming out of Tampa north on 75. This looks to be maybe averaging about 30 to 40, 45 miles an hour, somewhere in there, all the way up to Lake City. And then looks like a lot more problems up around Valdosta as people split off, and problems all the way up to Atlanta there. And those are all the northbound lanes, so that's definitely evacuation traffic there. And looks like some of that evacuation traffic is also affecting I-95 there in South Carolina. And this area is not out of the woods because the storm will be moving up through Florida and Georgia. And fortunately, it's going to be moving pretty quickly, but we will see localized flooding in this area, as the storm does have tremendous amounts of precipitable water, and that's going to come one direction, and that's going to be straight down as it moves into Florida and southern Georgia. So once again, we're going to be seeing high precipitation amounts as this storm moves onshore. Probably nothing like Harvey, but it will still be pretty bad. Okay, let's head into the rest of the products. Probably not a whole lot to look at here tonight. We'll just kind of go over the main products. The 250 millibar chart. This is kind of like the steering flow for most of the weather across North America. I didn't have time to prep this and make it look good, but there it is. There's a look at, you can see we've got subtropical jet over northern Florida right there. So we've definitely got the prevailing westerlies in place. Once Irma moves northward into northern Florida and Georgia, it'll probably be on the backside of this stronger winds because we do have the trough moving eastward, and it will be out of the picture. So the flow will be dying down a little bit towards Sunday and Monday. But that will pick up the system and keep it on the move there. Got a lot of ridging over the central plains. And wind flow pretty light in the central U.S. And on the west coast, we have troughing. Upper level trough there moving onto the coast near Oakland and San Francisco. So we're probably looking at some weather going downhill in Oregon and Northern California, with a trough being located right there and the ridge being downstream. The jet located something like this. We're going to be expecting the frontal system to be located roughly from maybe Oregon southward. May have been a frontal passage through San Francisco or Sacramento. And then we might expect to see a warm front up in Alberta there. So this is a pattern we're going to look at on the look for on the thickness chart. And there's another look at the weather across the North American continent, and the big thing that I see here is the lack of a Bermuda high. I mean, well, there is one. You can definitely see it out there, and it is steering Hurricane Irma westward, but we're mostly dominated by this big polar high. The origin of this has been from the Northwest Territories, been kind of sinking southward, and we've had some cold nights here. It got down to about 59 here in Texas last night for a second night in a row. Lots of dry air making it southward, and that is going to get entrained in the circulation of Irma as that meets up with the dry air over Georgia going from Sunday into Monday. So there's one last look at the upper air patterns. This is the 200 millibar chart. There's the strong subtropical jet over Georgia. So if that pattern continues into Sunday and Monday, then that will pick up the storm and keep it moving and help minimize some of the damaging precipitation there. Okay, and then we'll just look quickly at the 850 millibar chart, and definitely some very humid conditions over Florida. These are dew point depressions, so we can see that at 5,000 feet, dew points are in the upper 50s at Tampa and around 60 in the Key West area. And maybe I can take a look at maybe one sounding and see what conditions will look like. Let's see if we can get tonight's data here. Look at some live data here. Okay, here's Tampa. No data for Tampa yet. We'll try Key West. Yeah, Key West, that's going to be critical there. And wow, look at that moisture. Wow, that's some very significant moisture. Let me zoom in on that. This is actually what's going to infiltrate the storm as it comes off the coast of Cuba. And you can see the northeast flow right there. And look at those dew points. That's astonishing. Through the lowest 50 millibars, which is about the lowest 1,000 to 1,500 feet, we've got dew points in excess of 25 Celsius. This is running from about 77 to 81 degree dew points through a thick layer. So plenty of moisture in place there. So an upgrade to Category 5, I guess that would not be much of a surprise there. And let me take a look and see what the dew points look like over that area. Here's a good place you can go to, the Aviation Weather Center, aviationweather.gov. And when we actually have the hurricane making landfall, you can head to this website and get the official reported winds. So you just click on METARs there. And you can either use this JavaScript thing here, or you can use the pre-plotted layers like you see here. And look at those dew points, 81 at Key West. And that's not a high dew point over Illinois due to irrigation and cornfields and that kind of thing. That's very steamy tropical air there. Very impressive. 79 in the Miami area, 76 at Marathon, and we see 79 coming onto the coast right here at Vero Beach. So quite a bit of moisture feeding into the storm, and the next 24 hours are definitely going to be interesting. So let's head into the forecast. I guess we'll take a look at the deterministic GFS forecast. We know that this is an easterly solution, so this is going to take it kind of straight up the southern Florida area up to Lake Okeechobee, and let's see what that does. I can't wait until we can do HD. Then I can fit all this on one screen, but yeah, we'll try this. Okay, so running this forward. Okay, I'm going to have to do the, I'm going to have to set up the loop, so let me do that real quick. And while we wait on that GFS to load, we'll look at the synoptic scale picture. So let's do that. We'll look at the synoptic scale picture, and at the very top on the left, you can see the valid time. So this is the 18Z run. So what's going to happen over the next week or so? Well, obviously, we're going to see the hurricane making its way up into Florida, But notice this very cool air up here in the northeast U.S., 552 decameters. So when I see that, I'm thinking about surface temperatures in the 40s. It has been a very cold summer up in the northeast U.S. This has just been continuous. And we've got a 1030 millibar high over the Great Lakes right there. And that's what is feeding dry air southward. Eventually that will get pulled into the circulation as we get into Sunday and Monday. And further to the west, that's where the warm air is. And we've got the thickness ridging out in this region right here. So there's the landfall of Irma coming straight up through Florida, starting to encounter that polar high centered up in the Midwest. So we're going to start wrapping dry air into the circulation, and that will lead to the dissipation there, but it will still be coming up into Georgia as a tropical storm on Monday. So when we do the webcast on Monday night, probably going to be somewhere in Georgia, and those isobars definitely stacked there. Elsewhere, not a whole lot going on through the rest of the country. Heading into Tuesday, looks like the remnants of Irma move up into the Tennessee and northern Mississippi area. We've been seeing that for a while there. Kind of a weak Bermuda high out to the east, so we're going to be mostly under the influence of this Midwest high. And with Harvey moving, or with Irma moving inland, that's going to slingshot some cold air through the Ohio Valley into Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma there. So it looks pretty cool for the central U.S. over the next few days or so. Then going into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, Irma is just about gone there, and we can see what looks like a buildup of cold air up to the north. Very strong zonal flow keeping it at bay. And then for the weekend, and yeah, my birthday is coming up this weekend. Cold front coming south, and that's definitely a good present there. So there comes the cold front coming southward. Cold air piled up in Alberta, and we can see a little bit of high elevation snow appearing in Banff National Park there. I think that's Jose coming in there from the east. And now we're getting into a little bit of a deep tropical flow from the south on Saturday. And then here comes the frontal system southward on the 17th and 18th. Kind of a slow progress southward. And then finally, it looks like we kind of get it as a backdoor front around the 20th into Texas, driven by this 1026 millibar high. And then we get to the end of the run. Very well-developed system up in Canada. Snow in the higher elevations of Wyoming. A few 540 decameter thicknesses. And we're getting up to the 22nd here. So October getting very close here. And with the increase in fast flow from the west there and the tropical air coming up from the south, I think we're going to have to start looking at the possibility of severe weather in the Central Plains around the 20th to the 23rd. So bear that in mind there. All right, let's see what the GFS did for Florida. So there we go, 890 at landfall. So 890, that's going to definitely be in the Cat 5 range. I don't know how well the GFS does for intensity, but with those very strong, very high ocean heat content there over the straits and high sea surface temperatures, this is not too far out of the realm of possibility. The eye wall coming into this the Everglades right here, and that would be definitely a catastrophic event there. Landfall, this is going to be Sunday midday, and then by evening we're looking at it coming into the Fort Myers area. So it looks like we've slowed this system down a little bit with the foray westward into Cuba. So I don't know, we may not be doing an overnight presentation tomorrow. Maybe we're just going to have to get up early and do a daytime type presentation here. Anyway, the system moves northward, 948. That still puts it in the Cat 2 to Cat 3 range. So this is probably going to have some wide-ranging effects across the entire Florida peninsula. Lots of strong winds, and we do have to watch, especially in this forward left quadrant here. This is a potent area for tornadoes, especially in the outer spiral bands. So Miami, not totally out of the woods. The kind of stuff that happened in Houston when Harvey came ashore, I think we could be looking at the same thing going on out in that area too, in Miami. So evacuation out of that area. I'm not sure tornadoes or anything like that warrants evacuation, but I'm sure a lot of people are going to be glad to be out of there anyway. But strong winds, you can see a lot of yellow here. GFS bringing 50-knot flow. This is 50-knot sustained winds. So definitely up there, almost hurricane force affecting Miami. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of widespread power outages there in Miami. And probably a lot of the grid is going to be down throughout much of the state Sunday and Monday. Hurricane moves inland, tropical storm into Georgia on Monday. And then by Tuesday, we see it crossing over into Tennessee there and dying out. And there's the last of it right there around the Huntsville. Try to remember what cities are there. I guess that's Huntsville around Wednesday midday. And then she's gone. So looks like a good period of fair weather, which we badly need for the cleanup that we'll have to be dealing with, and hopefully that means they'll be able to get the lines back up and services and infrastructure restored here pretty quickly. Let's look at the European model. This is the European forecast. We did see the track earlier on this other plot, but we'll check that out on the synoptic map. And look at that strong high over the Great Lakes. That's a very strong polar high. Very cold air for this time of year. And here comes a 940 millibar high, or 940 millibar low coming up into southern Florida. So that's going to be Category 4 at landfall. I don't know how accurate the ECMWF is for intensity, but if that's on the ball, that's going to be a Category 4 storm coming inland. And there it goes up into the Gainesville area, and then taking the same track, dissipating around the Memphis area. And then for the rest of the week, buildup of polar air in western Canada, and we definitely need the cool air. There it is building up there on Friday the 15th. And it's going a little bit more aggressive with the southward push of that cold air into Texas. And considering the GFS does have a cold bias, the fact that the ECMWF is doing this makes me think that, yeah, we probably are going to get some cold air in here around the 18th or 19th. There's Jose off the coast, 949 millibars. That's probably, what, about Category 3 or so? And looks like that's recurving out to sea there. So it looks like at this time not a problem with that storm. Now before I go, I did want to kind of take a look at the interaction of the dry air with Irma as it comes inland. So let me bring up the chart for that. So we're looking at dew points here. And you can see Irma way down off at the bottom, kind of off the map, but it's steeped in 80-degree dew points down there. And looking up to the north, you can see the green, which is indicating 50-degree dew points. The cyan, the light blue, that's going to be 60 to 70-degree dew points. So let's watch as Irma moves northward. As long as it's within that moist air, it's going to be cranking along pretty good. It is going to be lacking the very warm sea surface temperatures, but usually we see a drastic reduction in strength as the dry air gets entrained into the circulation there. So here's how it plays out. By Monday morning, as it moves up into northern Florida, we see that the hurricane is still in 70 to 75-degree dew point air. And finally, on Monday, now you start seeing the dry air wrapping into the circulation during the morning hours. And there we have the transition to extratropical, becoming barotropic. And you can see a little bit of a frontal system type appearance as the system occludes and moves off into the Alabama and Mississippi area. So you can see how it becomes detached from the better moisture. Dew points in the core right around 60. So there'll probably be a few cold core showers in there as it moves into Tennessee. But the better moisture off in the coastal areas of Carolina and Florida. Okay, so that's pretty much all there is to tell. We're just going to wait on the next model cycle, which will be coming out probably in about 3 or 4 hours. And we'll take a look and see what the track does. And if I'm not too busy, I'll try to jump in here later and we'll go over the data and see what we're looking at. Looking briefly through the comments here. Ryan says, I can't tell you how much of a relief the past 12 hours has been. Yeah, with this westward movement of the track. However, yeah, this storm is going to be still devastating for a lot of Florida. Uh, 33 degrees last night in Wisconsin from Carl there. Ryan says the islanders out there in the Atlantic are just devastated. Islands will be uninhabited for some time. Resources and support systems just completely destroyed. And Irma's little brother Jose pushing off into the North Atlantic, currently a Category 3. J-Today Cynical says beer experiences an increase in purchases leading up to storms in Texas. And I've heard that also from some people I knew that worked in a liquor store many years ago. So, yeah, definitely agree with that. Once the videos from the island showed up on September 6th, everyone freaked out from the power and devastation. That one from Ryan. And yeah, Kevin McKinney talking about the movie about a hurricane party during Camille, where the partygoers lost their lives. I remember that scene definitely. That was in a 1974, I think, made-for-TV movie. I think it was just called Hurricane. And I saw the clip on YouTube some years ago. It's definitely hard to find, though, but it is on there. So, I think that's about all I have here. Let me get the get everything queued up, ready to go, and we'll just do it again tomorrow, Saturday. Let's see, before I do that, let me see what we're going to be looking at for tomorrow night's webcast. I want to see where this hurricane is going to be when we do the webcast tomorrow night. Okay, that's 12Z. At 12Z. Okay, so this is going to be Sunday morning, 10th to 12Z. Okay, so it's going to be moving out into the Straits Saturday night. At the time we do the webcast, we're going to have it still grazing the coast of Cuba, it appears. So it's going to be kind of mired down in the friction there. Yeah, there it is, the 10th at 0Z. GFS has it. Let me bring up my place names here. Wow, that's quite a ways east of Havana. Yeah, we're looking at about a good 100, 150 miles east of Havana. But, yeah, so we're just going to do a regular webcast tomorrow night. The storm will be in this position right here, and I'll probably maybe do one update overnight. And then I think Sunday, as it gets up into this region during the day or sometime during the morning, depending on how things work out, we'll come online and do an all-day weathercast for Sunday. And again, that'll be dependent on how far the track is. If it goes up into this area, then obviously we're going to be looking at a much more damaging situation. Anyway, that's about all I got for tonight. I appreciate you all watching, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow night. Take care, and please like and share the video where you can, and we'll see you then. Stay safe.